Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 93. If it's anything like it was off air, this is going to be an interesting show. Tonight we're going to analyse the Coventry game and the player performances. We're going to talk about the breaking news today, the latest on Forest points fine and the reaction to that, and obviously Everton as well, just to break away from our own misery. Take your questions and look ahead to the game in 2 weeks' time away at Aston Villa. Now, judging by his performance off air, his WhatsApps, his general mood, and his threats, Nocky, let's go straight to you with your take on Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, Coventry City 3. But by the way, before you do that, let me just jump in. I want to say a massive thank you to you two tonight because, you know what, it was hard for me to set it up. It's hard for you two to be here. So, you know what, I do really appreciate it. I'm not sure everyone else will appreciate it by the time that you two listen to the terrible things that you're going to say. But guys, it is appreciated and I hope everyone else as well. So welcome to episode 93 of The Wolves. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Knox.
I've had a bit of time to sit on it now. So I'm not, I've calmed down a little bit. I'm not nuclear anymore, which is obviously a positive. I mean, this time last week, we were absolutely buzzing. I was really proud of the players. Now I hate them all again after that performance. So it was just such a poor performance, you know. I mean, normally you can try and pick some positives out of it, and you can say, well, at least they had a go, at least we tried, at least we got back to our basics, but we were just absolutely dreadful. And I think Coventry could have been 4 goals up before we even had an opportunity to get ourselves back in the game. And what happened in the game is what I really didn't want to happen, is that we turned it into a cup tie. You know, it should have been a case of we needed to match their aggression, we needed to match their work rate. I don't think we did that. And then if you do those little things, if you match them up on the pitch, then eventually that extra quality you've got should shine through. And yes, we had players missing, but defensively, you know, all right, we've lost Dawson, but we brought in a Uruguayan international. You know, we've not brought Roger Johnson into the team. We brought in a top class defender, and him and Kilman were absolutely destroyed by Ellis Sims. He ripped them to pieces. It was men against boys in that defensive area, and they had so much space down the flanks. The midfield, it didn't work. Up front, there was just nothing there. I mean, Fraser, bless him, he's trying, but he's if he is going to make it, then he's not going to make it for another, you know, at least 2-3 years. He needs to be out in the lower leagues, learning his trade and developing. And then the substitutions, you know, Gary O'Neill, he takes credit when it's due, and he's had a lot of that this season because he's deserved it. But the substitutions I really didn't understand. I mean, putting Doherty in an attacking area was just baffling to me. I don't understand to this day why he even brought Doherty on. And if you look at the goals we conceded, he was majorly culpable for the equaliser because he's got a good eye on Sims, and then he just takes himself off for a walk up to the 6-yard box, and Sims is free to nod it in. So there were so many errors on the pitch, and there were so many things I think we could have done differently, and the substitutions in particular were absolutely horrendous. Yes, we haven't got much of a squad, but come on, we're playing the 8th best team in the Championship, who will still be in the Championship next season, and they've absolutely battered us. They've totally outclassed us. They've outfought us. They've outworked us. They were just miles and miles ahead of us, which is absolutely terrifying when you look at what was at stake. And yes, they played above themselves, but you know why they played above themselves? Because it was an FA Cup quarter final when you've got an opportunity to go to Wembley to test yourself in the semi-final. You know, you 3 games from a trophy, and to put in that level of performance, it really sticks in the throat that we've gone there and we've just bent over and got our tummies tickled, haven't we? It's just a horrendous display, and you know, it's potentially killed our season stone dead.
Well, Tyler, how are you going to follow that?
I thought I was quite calm then, to be fair. I thought
it's better than I was expecting, to be honest.
There's lots of words flying around in my brain that I wanted to be able to keep your podcast, so I kept them in.
I agree with most of what he said. I think the most alarming thing for me was the gap in the two sides. If you'd never watched a game of football before in your life, and you said one's a Premier League established team and one's a mid-table Championship team, because that's what they are, let's be fair, that's where they're going to finish. I thought they were brilliant. I thought they were exceptional, genuinely. I thought going forward, the movement they had, the pace, the quality, the aggression, I just say fair play to them. You know, we were poor and we'll come on to it, but I'd like to give credit to for a championship team to come to our place and have 24 shots. I don't remember like Man City, Liverpool ever having that many. So, admittedly, that's desperate on our part, like really poor. And Knocker's right, it is really poor. But they seized the moment, didn't they? And I think if we'd have had Palmer and Sims, we probably win the game on Saturday. We just had nothing up front. It was toothless. It worked second half against Fulham, but it almost worked because it was in the moment. The backs were against the wall, and Lamina was lost on that position he was trying to play. Gomez looked like he'd never played football before. It just didn't work. And like Knocker said, to go from one Saturday where I'm literally so happy and so proud of what they've achieved to then that in the space of a week, it's a kick in the goodies, isn't it? But I'd say fair play to Coventry. I thought they were superb.
Just to jump in, John Bradbury, thank you, Tyler. We all love the FA Cup, don't we? Unfortunately, we're on the wrong end of what makes the competition so special. And that's a great comment. I mean, we have to be civil and respect Coventry, because I don't think anyone will come out of Molyneux and say they didn't deserve it because the best team won. And sometimes when that happens, you've got to hold your hands up. But it hurts a little bit more in the circumstances. Losing a game of football always sort of seems to pedal on your chips, doesn't it, regardless? But when you're 2-1 up in injury time and you lose, but Wolverhampton Wanderers and a 3-2 in the FA Cup heartbreak. I mean, who'd have thought it? But it's a tough one. No, for me, Nocky, the most frustrating thing is that in the first half, Wolves were very fortunate to go in with the scoreline that they did. And there was multiple warnings that it wasn't working. And for me, when you've had that at half time, going into half time, you have to make a change. I think we made the changes too late. Yes, the options were limited, but the Ait-Nouri move, we've talked about that in the past, getting Bueno on and Ait-Nouri further up the pitch because he can do something that the others don't do and offer something else in terms of pace. Because no disrespect to Sarabia or Fraser, I felt I'm not going to be critical of Fraser whatsoever because it's not his fault. He did his best, but he got bullied by a pair of championship centre backs, and Sarabia's feeding off scraps because he's not holding up the ball at all, which meant all Wolves' play was coming down left and right. We couldn't get behind them because we didn't have an option, and it needed to change sooner. And I thought we had the whole of half time. I thought Wolves will change this. I think something will happen, and they didn't, Knocky. And I think we have praised, but I think that deserves some criticism that we didn't change sooner.
Yeah, I mean, we had a conversation at half time, didn't we? I came down to find you, and for me, I would have took Fraser off at half time. I would have put Ait-Nouri further up the pitch, put Bueno on, and then you could even have dropped Sarabia into maybe a deeper attacking position as a false nine and put Lamina on the right hand side, or you could even have put Lamina a bit deeper and played Sarabia wide, or you could have played Ait-Nouri off for Sarabia. There was lots of things you could have done. I'm not saying they would have worked, but it would have given you something different because Fraser was just being eaten up. He just wasn't getting a kick. And I was really disappointed with his performance, actually, because I think we know the level he's at the moment and we know where he needs to be and what he needs to work on, but I didn't even feel like he was making himself available. I didn't think he was being a pain or getting himself into positions or working the defence. He just seemed very static. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence or he's just not sure what to do in those kind of conditions.
I felt they dealt with him. I thought they were aggressive with him, and I thought they bullied him out of it very quickly. I mean, big boys at the back for Coventry. Yes, he's a big boy himself. He's hardly played any professional games, but they knew early doors, put some big headers and big challenges in, and that saw him disappear.
But he made it easy, though.
I don't blame him, but he got bullied out of it very quickly by two big, angry Coventry centre-backs.
He did, but he made it very easy for them. I mean, if you know you're going to get eaten like that, go and take yourself to a wide position, try and pull the centre-half out into the wide angles and let your midfielders run through and take your space up. There was none of that. He was very much between the edge of the area up to the halfway line and just making those moves forward and backwards. And I just want to see a little bit more from him, a little bit more, dynamism, just try something a little bit different. He's not the only one. I'm not trying to single him out, but there was a lack of energy throughout the team. And there's a very short list of people who come out with anything. And the one who probably comes out with the most credit is Ait-Nouri. And he's Ramadan, so he's not eating or drinking, and he's still got more energy than anyone else on the pitch. There's a lot of things we need to really be concerned about. But it was just, if your system's not working, it's clearly not working. And Gary O'Neill's been really good at this in the past. If it's not working, he makes those changes. He chose not to do that, and he just left it as it was and hoped it would work. And it was never, ever going to work. And to come out, set up the same way as we did second half, first half, I just found that absolutely bizarre. And he got it wrong. And credit where it's due when he gets it, but he absolutely got it wrong and he didn't react quickly enough.
Tyler, do you think, my voice is on the go again, do you think
Sure.
that I know Nocky talks about a lack of movement up front. I translate that as a lack of pace, because if you've got two static footballers that aren't particularly mobile like that, it was easy for Coventry at the back. So although it was static, well, that's not their game really, is it? That, and I know Lamina tried to play Fraser in behind against that centre back once, and Fraser just didn't get moving at all. But for me, when your centre forward isn't holding the ball up, and you've got no ball all over the top or no through ball, the ball keeps coming back, and that's what happened. And eventually, they grinded Wolves down, because it doesn't matter what level you're at. If attacks keep coming to you, you're eventually going to concede goals. And it was wave after wave, and the more it was happening, the less the ball was going up to Sarabia. Didn't have an option. Going to Fraser, coming straight back. So I'm not singling them out, but playing two slow forwards together, it just didn't work. And Greg's talking about Lamina. It worked last week. He put a shift in, but he's not a wide player. And so many players managed to have off days. And I feel like the last two performances where Wolves were probably fortunate and got through on guts, it probably caught up with Wolves this weekend.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a multitude of reasons that you can talk about. I mean, we could go back to the old squad size argument, the injuries argument, the letting the two strikers go in January without replacing them argument. There's a multitude of things you can probably talk about, but on the day, it's 11 against 11, and their 11 were a lot better than ours. When you are missing your players, you need your Laminas, your Gomez's, your Semedos to then have 7, 8 out of 10 games. And unfortunately, they were all off it. So if you throw that into the mix with a lack of quality up front, it's just a recipe for disaster, isn't it, really? But I don't know, people have different opinions on the squad size and the injuries and why we've let people go. But I'm with Knocker, you've got to perform on the day still. And I do agree with Knocker. I think Fraser has to show more or do more. The lad that came on for the last half an hour did a lot more than him.
He looked more mobile, didn't he? He looked more suited.
He put a tackle in, a bit of a reducer. He ran the lines, he ran the channels, he made little darting runs. And I think that's what Knocker's talking about. As a very bare minimum, you've got to be a nuisance to play against. And I think Knock and his dad could have played centre half for Coventry on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a real tough one. It's just so disappointing that such a massive opportunity. But what hurts even more, Knocky, is Wolves had a really poor game, but they showed character to still turn the game round with two actually really good goals, nicely worked together. Incredible that two left-backs managed to score to turn it round. Everyone's absolutely buzzing. From that point now, for me, at almost any level, it's criminal to collapse like that, because I just thought the winning goal was almost a mirror image of where it was scored from, the goal against Man United. And we've not learned from that mistake. You're 2-1 up. Regardless of the opposition, they're going to throw the lot at you. Tuck in, spoil it, ruin it. And we were wide open, knock it. And I just don't understand. We were given an absolute lifeline after getting pounded by Coventry, and we still threw it away.
It was just individual errors. I mean, we've allowed the ball to come in the box too easily. We've not challenged at the near post for the equaliser. The defence has left Ellie Sims completely unmarked. And then for the winner, like you say, he's pretty much the same position that Man United scored from. And again, no one's gone out to try and block the shot. They've just stood there ball watching. And even the first goal, I mean, it's not a great ball in. It's just into a relatively dangerous area, but it's pretty straight, and you should be able to deal with that. And you can always look at things that maybe haven't gone your way, and the handball potentially for the goal, and then they end up scoring in the time that was added on for that. But then at the same time, Nelson Semedo could have been sent off for kicking someone in the face. So you can always find an excuse if you want to find one. But the reality is we didn't do the basics well enough, and it's not the first time this season that we've conceded a late goal. It's not the first time this season that we've got ourselves in a good position late on and come back from a bit of adversity and ended up throwing it away. It's becoming a little bit of a habit for us, and it's not through any lack of effort. I was looking at it back at the way it was now. I don't think there was any lack of effort, but I think there was a real lack of discipline. There was a real lack of games management, and there was just a lack of maybe belief as well. I just didn't feel like they believe they could hold on to it. And
Yeah, I think
there's
Coventry surprised Wolves early on with how good they were.
They did, but you would expect that in a game like that, we play the game and they play the occasion. But it was just completely the other way around. They were playing the game and we were playing the occasion, and we looked terrified. We were scared, and we just didn't have that arrogant swagger about us. I think half the problem is that we've lost Lamina in that holding area alongside Gomez, because we know that when them two are together, they're key. You take Lamina out of there and he'll work his socks off the same as the rest of them will work the socks off. But if you play a player in an unnatural position, you're not going to get the best out of him. So it does come back to squad size. It does come back to not having been able to bring on the quality. But then at the same time with that, you have to look at Gary O'Neill, because he did, he would have been involved in the decision to let Kalajic and Fabio go. So he may have been expecting a replacement to come in.
I'm not sure that he was, mate, to be honest.
But what other team allows their players to go before they've got a replacement in? It's absolute suicide. So you can blame Hobbs, you can blame O'Neill, you can blame the players. It's a collective cock-up that's put us out the FA Cup. And I've got to be honest, I would have quite fancied us against Man United, because I think we've given them a couple of good games this year, and you never know in a semi-final. But to blow it the way we did, it's a massive kick in the teeth, and so unnecessary as well.
Yeah, I mean, as Tyler said before, Nocky, there's a whole collection of issues. How many other if you include Dawson in it, there's 5 first team players out, and you would argue that 4 of them probably start for Wolves. So, but is that unlucky, or is that, again, Tyler talking about how thin the squad is? But then you look at January, when it's my understanding, I might be wrong, that the loan money we had to get a player in was then spent because there was a deal to save £1 million by paying Johnny off. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It's what I'm told. But the facts, and I think, Tyler, you're privy to this as well, that Gary O'Neill wasn't particularly happy in January in terms of the recruitment, and you can understand that. And we can point the blame at lots of things, and just briefly going on to, Greg has said this here, and when we do the ratings, Greg, I don't think we are just singling out Fraser. I think we're all highlighting that, unfortunately, how out of his depth, and I'm not being critical of him and saying it's all him. It was everybody's fault. There's multiple things and poor performances. So, no, if it come across as we're burning Fraser, we're not. He was poor, but he wasn't alone, and I'm sure that'll be reflected when we go through the team, Greg. But Tyler, multiple reasons. You can understand why Gary O'Neill will be angry, because, when you're chasing the game and you're bringing your right wing back on to play left forward, you brought your left wing back to play right forward, and you brought another lad to make his debut, the lad who's only had 6 appearances. It's a pretty desperate situation.
It is desperate. On the flip side, he wasn't playing Sasa and Fabio. He wasn't giving them 30 seconds at the end of the game. So, although I sort of agree with both of you, I think he probably wasn't too in the know with letting them go, but he wasn't playing them or selecting them at any point, even when we needed goals and were chasing games. So, that ship sailed, and you have to deal with what you've got, and it has come back to bite us on the bum, but I'd argue 5 injuries, we should be able to cope. Brighton came to our place and had 9 and still had an established Premier League set of players out. Villa have had so many injuries. Tottenham have. They're still 4th and 5th and battling because they've got a squad that can cope. We probably said on episode 1 of your podcast that the squad's too small, and we're still talking about it, 92 episodes later. Until it's addressed, until it's sorted properly, we're always going to be having these conversations. And it's all well and good buying Noah Lamina and was it Gonzalez? What's the point if they're not ready to impact the team at the moment? We're crying out for 2 wide forwards at the moment. We bought 2 and they're nowhere to be seen. And it's all well and good buying for the future, but sometimes you've got to look at the here and now, and there's no way that the squad can sustain the push it's been on for 38 games. It's just not going to happen. And you talk about the substitute. Staggered Boubacar didn't play a part on Saturday, especially when you're 2-1 with stoppage time. That staggers me. To not go back to a back 3 and put Doherty at right wing back baffles me. There were a few head scratches on Saturday, to be fair, but like Knocker said, you can't be too critical. But it's all well and good praising. But there were some strange ones on Saturday, I thought.
Yeah, there was so much that went wrong throughout the game. But you know what? I'm not going to make over excuse everything, because the best side won and Wolves deserve to lose. And if it wasn't for a magnificent Jose Sarr performance, that game's probably dead by half time because, incredibly, if one player did, well, him and probably E93 didn't deserve to be on the losing side. Sarr was fantastic, so was E93. We'll move on to the first goal. Again, controversial. Would it have made any difference? I don't know, but I'd like to find out. And I put a tweet of the video of the goal, and people said, "Oh, well, you just make excuses." I'm not, because the better side won. But I would like to know, considering what happened on Sunday with the West Ham handballs, how's that not given us handball, Nocky? Because we've seen the freeze frames, and we're just three punters on a podcast. We can all see it rolls up his arm off his body. Now, in a normal set of play, that would not be given as handball, but as it's directly leading to a goal, it's handball. So there are different rules. I know it's crazy to say this. If that's in the middle of the pitch and it's given as a VAR, the goal would be given. If it's judged to have been handball, but it's directly leading to a goal off that player, it's classed as handball, like we saw at West Ham on Sunday afternoon. Nocky, tell me how that's not handball.
I mean, from where I was sat at the time, it didn't look like handball. Seeing the replays, it could have been handball, but we're stuck in this kind of clear and obvious area again now, aren't we? Because if it's not absolutely conclusive that it hits his arm, because from any angle you can kind of find what you want out of it. If he's not 100% sure, then they're not going to overturn it, are they? If they can't be 100% sure with the camera angles, then they're not going to overturn it. It looks it to me. But if they don't see it, they can't give it, can they? So it's just another one that you can add to the list of decisions that are 50-50 that have gone against us. And some teams do. I mean, you look at Villa, I'm not digging out Villa, but any 50-50 seems to go their way, whereas with us, any 50-50 just seems to go against us, and it is what it is. But I mean, look, I don't really want to talk about that one too much because I don't think it had any impact on the result. It was coming. It was coming regardless. So we know what VAR is. We know that VAR shouldn't be in the game, in my opinion. But I'll loathe to use that as an excuse.
And Tyler, just your take on that, because I think we've been on the same page as this, but I think you tweeted about it as well. It's staggering to me. I just don't understand how it's not handball.
It's clearly handball, and it's clearly a free kick to Wolves. You need one replay. I don't really get what they're looking at, what they're checking. And again, it's not an excuse. They were fabulous. And like I said at the start, they fully deserved their win. But
absolutely,
you can't score a goal with your arm in football. So it's a free kick.
Absolutely. Moving to the 83rd minute, Tyler. Wolves equalised. Ryan E93. For me, the game changed then. Putting E93 what we wanted a long time ago. When Bueno came on, he was moved up front. It made a difference. And Wolves looked like they could hurt Cov then. And when that sustained spell of pressure, when everyone believed, and for me, E93 was the difference.
Yeah, it's nice he's popping up with some goals, isn't it? I think ultimately you'd probably class it as a bit of a defensive error. The guy's just been caught and he's just popped up lovely and he's buried it first time on the volley, hasn't he? So nice goal and yeah, probably the only shining light of our outfield players, really. But it's good to see him popping up with goals. You know, people have been talking about him for ages, saying that he could probably play a bit further up and play a bit more advanced, and the finish was lovely. The assist for Bueno's goal was top class play. He's a top footballer, isn't he? He's really coming into that now, and you go 1-1, and you sort of think, well, we've got out of jail a bit here, haven't we? And I'm sure you'll let Nocky talk about the second goal, but when that goes in, you think, here we go, it's on, and
well, that's it.
It's inexcusable to then not win the game from that position.
Yeah, it's a brief positive, Nocky. E93 again with some fine work and a good finish by Hugo Bueno. Please.
Yeah, I mean, like Chris says, it's an absolutely sublime pass to put him in. And the run from Bueno's can't be understated. It's a brilliant run to take himself, and just at the right time he makes that dart, and the ball through from E93 is perfect. And, it's a top-class finish, isn't it? But we were lucky to get ourselves into that position, but being in that position, we then should have instantly made an adjustment. I maybe myself would have been tempted to take maybe even Doherty off and bring Boubacar on, or just find a way to go through at the back, stabilise things a little bit. because of the amount of space they were getting. You're talking, you've got 4 minutes left to hang on, and you're in a semi-final. That's when those adjustments should have been made, and we should have gone back to 3 at the back. We should have dropped to 1 up front and just tried to stink the game out really for the last 4 minutes. But very naive to stick doing with what we were doing, especially when they've overrun us the way they did. But it was a fabulous goal. I think our last 3 goals now have been scored by left wing backs, so it just kind of shows you where we are at the minute.
And Tyler, just I don't want to do it, but we've got to do it somewhere along the way. After that, I don't want to analyse the 2 Cov goals, but that collapse from 96 to 100 minutes, I've got to be honest, I thought Watford was bad, and that was at Wembley, but only Wolves could surprise us like this. I mean,
you hit the nail on there with the word collapse.
That's
exactly what it was. You'd expect it in kids' football or under 7s, under 8s. That's the sort of game you expect. You just see the game out. You keep the ball for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
You pass it around. You don't let them have a sniff. You hit the corners. You bring Boubacar on. You put Doherty right centre back. You go tight. You make it horrible. You do whatever you need to do to get over the line. But to not change anything and to let them score not 1 pathetic goal, but then 2.
Both avoidable.
Nocky, the Boubacar situation, I don't know if by that point Wolves would use their three allotted sub times. Let me have a look. 60, 73, 60. No, they hadn't. So they could have brought him on. I think you're allowed 3 sub windows when you've got 5 subs. But no, I don't. He didn't. He could have brought.
But even if you can't make a sub, you can still go 3 at the back. You just drop Doherty back. Put him as a centre back. So even if you haven't got the ability to change it, you've still got the ability to change a personnel that's on the pitch and just make it disgusting. Throw yourself to the floor, roll round, waste a bit of time, have a moan at the ref. Do what Brentford did to us, do what teams like that have done to us, and just absolutely ruin the game for 4 minutes. Instead, we made it really open. It was almost as if we thought we could go and get another goal. And
I don't know why we were so wide open. It was just, it was baffling.
But that's the point, though. We've been open the whole game, haven't we? We've been wide open the whole game, and then you're into injury time. You're 2-1 up, and I've criticised him not making the subs. He makes the subs. We go 2-1 up. So in theory, he's got that piece right. But we were so open that we didn't close that down at any point during the game. And surely, 4 minutes left. Just take all your strikers off, do whatever you need to do and make it horrible.
Yeah, you make it disgusting at that point. Yeah.
Completely naive by everybody.
Yeah, it was a collapse, wasn't it? I don't really want to talk about that anymore. I'm sure else wants to listen to it. But before we move on to FFP, not VAR that I've put in the comments, let's just briefly go through the team. Tyler, one of the 2 positives on the outfield, Jose Sarr. I would argue that was probably his best game for Wolves.
Well, yeah, it would have been a cricket score otherwise, wouldn't it? But I suppose I'm not even going to be too. Every save he made, he should make. Let's not make out he's making worldies. They were good saves, but they were comfortable. They're saves he should be making. Probably 8 out of 10. Him and Ray Laurie are probably the only 2 that come out with any real pride from that performance. Did well. That's the side we know. He's a good shot stopper. He makes good saves. So certainly one of his better games. But still let 3 goals in and still out the cup. So don't really make me feel any better, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. But he needs to be acknowledged because I thought he was good, and we haven't really got many positives to talk about. So we've got to grab one while we can. Nocky, you got the stinky job of talking us through that back 3.
Just pitiful. Absolutely pitiful performance by all of them, really. In particular, Bueno, who I've been really banging the drum to get an opportunity to play in that team. And him and Kilman were just absolutely bullied. They didn't know how to deal with Sims. They were never in a position to deal with them. There was no leadership there from that back line. And you want your skipper in particular to be kind of grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck. They were just bullied. They were run ragged by Sims, who's not the quickest player in the world, but he always seemed to be in space. And then they had the quick players breaking from each side and for the flanks, and they couldn't deal with that. They brought Callum O'Hare on; they couldn't deal with him. They were just tore apart. It was probably the worst performance, definitely the worst performance I've seen from Bueno. Probably the worst performance I've seen from Kilman. And it sounds bad to say, but I kind of felt like they hid a little bit and they didn't want to engage. They were very standoffish, and it was pretty pathetic, the performance from the centre backs. Totti, he wasn't great himself. He was probably the best of the 3, but the other 2 for me were absolutely just abysmal.
Yeah, it's hard to give much credit when you get, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but when you're getting bullied by Championship centre forwards, bullied physically, they're quicker, they're stronger. They just look like they wanted it more, and it's a tough one. And coming off a couple of good results and keeping the defence quiet, it just did all seem to fall down. Tyler, Ryan Aitnori, Nelson Semedo.
Semedo was pants. Aitnori was very good, I thought. Like I said, you can't afford your big players to not hit the mark. And, Semedo set high standards for himself over the last few weeks. And rightly so, he's been excellent. But I didn't think he was very good at all on Saturday. He was lacking that composure that he's got. He was a bit erratic. Aitnori, tried to do everything right, didn't he? Was trying to go forward, was trying to make things happen, was trying to take people on. Probably looking around thinking, I've not got much help here, there's not much options. And like we said, took his goal and got his assist. I mean, you couldn't fault his performance, really. I thought it was very good. Is it time to see him higher up the pitch now for the next few league games? I think it's going to have to be, isn't it? Because
we've got one of the questions, so we'll say that for a little bit later, because that's someone's question in terms of what we're going to do leading into Villa. But yeah, I absolutely agree. Nocky, Joe Gomez and Tommy Doyle centre midfield. I just feel like Joe Gomez isn't Joe Gomez when he's not got Mario Lemina next to him.
No, he didn't have his usual anger about him. He wasn't attacking it the way he usually does. He's ball recovery second to none, and he just wasn't there for him at all. And Doyle, I don't think it was the right kind of game for him. He didn't seem to have the space to play. He ate a lot of loose passes as well, which isn't something you kind of associate with him. He's usually pretty good on the ball. But again, I think in the midfield we were kind of overrun a little bit. They were both Gomez he was quite pivotal a little bit later on in the game when we were moving towards getting our 2 goals. He started to get a little bit better. But again, I think he looked like one of the performances from last season under Lopetegui, where we thought he wasn't really developing much as a player. But I think, like you say, he's used to playing with Lemina, and I think when he's with Lemina, they've got a set pattern of what they're going to do. They know when to go, they know when to hold. And if you take one piece of that puzzle away, the other one really does struggle. So I don't think they were the worst players on the pitch, but I certainly don't think they covered themselves in any glory.
Last but not least, and we won't overdo this much more, the forward 3, Tyler, Pablo Sarabia, Nathan Fraser and Mario Lemina.
I think Fraser you've probably covered. Sarabia, it's hard.
If he's got no one moving in front of him, his game is opening it up. And if those guys aren't getting into space and he's got no one to pass, what's he supposed to do? Because he isn't going to beat people. He finds the pocket, he puts a nice cross in, he keeps it going, he's intelligent. But if you've got no movement, it doesn't matter. If you've got no movement, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and he did look a bit better, didn't he, when Chorley came on at front, because he had those runs and he was playing those little reverse passes, and we just looked brighter and better for it. But you're right, without he leads the orchestra, doesn't he? Without the orchestra, you can't lead it, can you? And then Lemina, it just didn't work, did it? It just didn't work. It did against Fulham. It didn't on Saturday. You can't criticise the guy because he's out of position. But yeah, I'd have just moved him back inside and got Aitnori further forward earlier on. But yeah, it just didn't work. It was just, enough said, I think, probably.
Absolutely. You are listening and watching episode 93 of the Wolves Report. Chris Tyler Martinock and myself, Ryan Lester. We always record the show live. We've had lots of comments coming through. You can be involved with the show on Twitter, Facebook and X, formerly X for Twitter. We'll also go onto Facebook, and it is also put onto Spotify after the pre-record. That's the only bit that's pre-recorded. We'll just move away from Wolves briefly so everyone can take a breath, and I can see lots of different opinions, lots of debate and stuff. But the news broke middle of the afternoon today that Nottingham Forest are going to be deducted 4 points. It was 6, but because they complied pretty quickly, they got 2 taken off. So they were taking 4 points away. Just your take on this quickly, gents, because obviously if it was Wolves, I'd be angry. And I put a tweet out earlier on talking about it. Now, and I know Everton fans are angry and Forest fans, but they seem to be angry at the Premier League, where if my club went into breaking profit and sustainability or financial fair play rules, I'd ask the question that why was the club you've as a custodian in the football club, you should be running it correctly. Now, if you're rolling the dice and you're getting trouble, yes, you know what, these rules might not be fair, but you know what the rules are at the start of the season. So why are people getting angry at the Premier League or the independent panel when you're custodian in the club badly enough to fall short? Okay.
So that's a crap, isn't it? I mean, how on earth do you get points put back on because you've complied? Surely that's an admission of guilt that you know you've done wrong. And
They have, yeah, that's what they have.
If I tell the truth, I'll be all right here. I'll get a bit knocked off it. Their breach was a bigger breach than Everton's, and Everton were initially hit with what, a 10-point penalty, and they've only got 4.
So let me just jump in with that. So they can't give the same because they weren't in the Premier League for 2 of those years, and I know that doesn't really make sense, but equally the Premier League and the independent panel can't punish them for what they did in not that division. So that's the theory behind that, and I understand that, and the numbers are worse, but I don't understand why everyone's saying this is corrupt, that's corrupt, when your owner has spent, in my opinion, recklessly on whatever he's liked, and then he's complaining about it now because it's not fair. Tyler?
I think it's no deterrent to breaking the rules. I think it's an utter shambles. If you said to me now, Wolves can go and spend a couple of $100 million and they'll only get a 4-point, why would you not do it?
Yeah.
You're going to get more money by staying.
As long as we admit it, 4 points, cheers.
4 points is nothing. That means you've got to get to 44 points over the course of the season and to guarantee staying up even with the deduction. So for me, it's a bit pathetic, really. We've had Everton docked and then got points back. We've had Forest docked, but then not docked the full amount. I mean, like Knocker said, it's ridiculous. They just don't know what they're doing, do they? It's pointless. I don't know if the 2 clubs broke the rules. You think as a neutral they probably did because of the signings they've made and what they've done. But for me, that's no deterrent. If I was coming up and I was a wealthy millionaire, that wouldn't put me off breaking the rules.
No, if you look at Forest, though, I get that they were in the Championship, but they stayed up based on those transfer irregularities because they were able to spend money and bring in 30, 40 players. So what kind of punishment is 4 points? It's absolutely no deterrent. And it kind of feels to me almost like they're prepping it for the Man City case. They're trying to make it a little bit lighter so that when they do come to Man City, there's not got to be such a heavy punishment coming their way. It just doesn't feel right to me. It's no deterrent at all. There's no reason for Wolves not to go out. I mean, you look realistically, if we'd have gone out and spent that extra money, potentially we had a striker in, we beat Coventry, we're at Wembley now, potentially. But because we complied by the rules, we've ended up getting knocked out the FA Cup, and we've got no strikers. So
yeah,
where's the why would you abide by the rules?
I know you're both right, and I agree. There isn't really a deterrent if it's only minimal points. But I don't really want to see everyone going, well, the rules aren't really that tough, or just do what we want, and it's just the Wild West, then, isn't it? So I think this is soft punishment. Forest fans would disagree, but as I said on my tweet earlier on, why are you pointing the finger at the Premier League and an independent panel when your owners have spent and overspent it, admitted they did it as well? So to me, it makes no sense. But I just wanted to cover that briefly, give us a little breather before some of these questions come in. So let's move on to some questions. Just briefly going back to the game, which I thought we'd finish. Wayne says, was that some of the worst game management you've seen in a game of such magnitude? That's a stinker, but I had to ask it, Wayne.
It has to be. To be 2-1 up after 96 minutes and 32 seconds and to not draw the game but to lose it, that is inexcusable. You can't defend that. I don't care if you're Gary O'Neill's nan, you can't defend that. It's not good enough. And like Knocker says, he's done it before. He's sent players down injured for no reason. His time wasted with substitutions. He's played... For me, I'll be bad. I can't, certainly under his regime, definitely. And the only other one would be Watford away when Nuno put the B team out for the last 10 minutes and look what happened there. So I'm with Wayne. Yeah, I think it was inexcusable. Really.
What makes, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but what made it worse with Wayne, he actually put the picture up of when it was 2-1. It was like 96 minutes and 29 seconds. I didn't need that, Wayne, but I mean, the question was enough not to keep me putting that up as well. But yeah, Wayne, thanks for being part of the show. Great question. Dave Butler moves on to ask, is Neto sidelined for the rest of the season to protect his summer value or fitness for next season? Assuming the latter, another stinker, which players would you grudgingly let go to finance the squad? Well, first of all, Dave, I would say that Goncalo Gedge, I think he'll be off, whether that's 10, 15, 20 million. Fabio will be off. And it's not just about creating money as well. Wolves will have a certain amount in it. Yeah, Podence, probably there's the 5 million agreement there. So Wolves will have a certain amount of money to spend anyway that they can spend without breaking that window. So there will be money. My plan originally in my head was going to be reluctantly sell Neto, get a huge wedge, go, but I don't see that happening now. I just don't see it, because who's going to? I mean, his numbers are great, but for the time he's had, who's going to pay 40, 50 million now? Never mind 60, 70 for Neto when he keeps getting injured. So out there, I think, and I hate saying it, and I tweeted about it today, the most likely person for me to go, not the one I grudgingly let go because I'd want to keep him the most, is Ryan Aït-Nouri. I think he looks like the star player at the moment. Liverpool, they've got an aging left back there. I mean, could he go back to Paris Saint-Germain? Aït-Nouri, his performances are moving on to another level, and I think that's a player that now, for me, even though he's a fullback, commands 50, 60 million. Guys, what do you think?
Sorry, just on Neto. So his last 3 seasons, he's played 19, 18 and 13 games. He's not even playing half a season. So that's the quandary, isn't it? And we can't carry players with a small squad. You can't carry players that can only play half a season. So you're probably selling him for 40, 50, aren't you, if you can get it? 40 million maybe. I'd like to think it was the first part of that question, and there is no point in playing him and just get him fit for next season. But will we benefit from that or someone else?
Absolutely. Nocky, grudgingly, who would you sell to give us some shopping money?
In terms of big money players, I think we're kind of lacking a little bit. I mean, I'd let Neto go in a heartbeat because I think we're carrying an asset there that's going to cost us points because we can't get him on the pitch. Kilman, you would expect we could get a decent fee for because he's a young English centre half. I tend to agree with the Aït-Nouri piece, but the problem is I don't believe we bought out the initial contract with that, which means that we'd have to give a massive amount of money away.
Yeah, let me just jump in with that as well. I had some clarification on that earlier on. That so Wolves own 100% of the player, and it's 50% of the profit. So anything after 10 million, I think we paid, it's 50% of that. And to buy that out, it is another 10 million pounds, which we can pay at any time. So if someone comes in with a ridiculous offer, we can. There's no timeline on that. We can pay it whenever. So Wolves don't need to do it because he's still got a few years left on his contract. So when it comes to crunch, and if he continues to progress like he is, the bid will come. And then if Wolves decide to accept, they can activate that 10 million clause. Even still, Wolves are still going to make a decent amount of money because that kid is special.
You're still losing 10 million off the fee, though, aren't you? I mean, it's hard to get a great deal of money for a left wing back or a left back if you're being completely realistic. So if you get 50 million for him, you've now only got 40 million for him because you've got to give 10 million of that away. So can you replace him with that? I like Hugo Bueno, but I don't think he's on the same planet as Aït-Nouri. So
I don't think many of them are on the same planet as Aït-Nouri.
You're still going to have to spend, though, aren't you? You're going to have to go and spend a lot of money to bring him back in. And we know the key area for us is in the attacking area now. So you've got to build money up for that. I think there's a lot of fringe players that will go. My kind of worry is that the players we have bought in, like Laminas and Gomez, they're the players that we're looking at going forward as these replacements, and they're a long way away from that. So I think there's a very big summer coming up for Wolves, and I don't think it's one we can afford to get wrong because the quality, the poor quality in this division this year, I just don't think that'll be there next year.
Absolutely. Well, if Leicester come up, they're likely to start on a minus, and I watched Leeds against Chelsea and Leicester against Chelsea. I don't think they're centre backs. I think they're the same centre backs that's got them in trouble in the Premier League. So it will be tougher. But equally, Nocky, I think there'll be a few teams who will have to do what Wolves have done this year and sell a few assets to balance the books. Because if they're going to be stricter like this, people just can't keep doing it. Dave, thank you for being part of the show. Dave Butler there contributing. Richard Holmes asks, are you concerned that the combination of a threadbare squad and the impact of Saturday's loss sees the fees gone and the season petering out? Now, we've talked about this on the group chat, and I know I'm outnumbered here, but what Wolves have done really well this season, every time they've had an absolute stinker, they've bounced back. Now, that's not opinion, that's a fact, because they bounced back really well time and time again. But doing it with the limitations you've got, Cunha might be back, you might play Aït-Nouri up front. It will be really tough against high-flying Aston Villa. Tyler?
We said it 2 weeks ago, didn't we, me and Knock? And as usual, we get the doom and gloom merchants come out, but we just say it as we see it, and it's realistic. You can't, like I said, you can't maintain a 38-game season with the small squad and the injuries we've got. There's still more than enough quality in that squad to have a strong finish. I mean, we've got some winnable home games on paper, but the away games look stinky, don't they? So I expect us to maybe pick up another 2-3 wins maybe out of them. I'm not expecting big things now, and I think the breaks come at just the right time. But realistically, we're not going to see Hwang and Neto again for the best part of the end of the season. It's the same problems you've got, you know. Even then, you've got a front three with like Cunha, Sarabia, Bellegarde.
You say that. You say that though, but Bellegarde is probably a week behind Cunha. But if you keep Bellegarde,
he doesn't impress me like he impresses you. So why not count? I'm not putting him in.
And that's fair enough. But a fit Bellegarde on Saturday would have made way more difference having that pace that wasn't there. Because
I haven't really make a difference up to now, if I'm honest. So
that's fair enough. But I think that if Bellegarde, Cunha, and Sarabia are the front three going in, say, the last 7 games, and with the rest of the team at full strength, for me, that's still a decent side that's going to beat teams.
Yeah, and I've just said that. I've just said we've still got good players, and I'd expect us. But we've got to go to City and Liverpool, that's no points. Arsenal at home, that's no points. Villa away, horrible game. Can we capitalise on Bournemouth at home, West Ham at home, Luton at home, Forest? They're the games that we need to target the points from. And we're in a good position. We're lucky that we haven't got to worry about winning any more games. We're lucky we're not in a scrap. I just see it, and I said it 2 weeks ago, I just see it, unfortunately, petering out a little bit.
Yeah, I think, Nocky, it's not do or die, because Wolves are in a position where they're not going to get relegated. They're out the cup now, a couple of injuries. This is the biggest 2 weeks of O'Neill's tenure now to get these players fixed and their mindset ready, because if they perform like that at Villa Park, it could be embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, start of the season, I ripped your hand off for this position, but I feel it almost felt like that was the season over against Coventry. And I know it's still raw and it's still emotional, but that's kind of how it felt when that final whistle blew. And for me, I think it's going to be a battle now to stay in the top 10. I think that you can just feel it fizzling out. We haven't got the squad. The players we have got, we're running into the ground because they're having to play plenty of minutes. And it does catch up with you. And every squad in this division seems to have more about them. They seem to have more on the bench. They seem to have more options than we do. And even Coventry City came to Molineux with more options on the bench. They were able to change things around and affect the game. So it kind of just feels like it is going to peter out. They look leggy already and they had a week off. So hopefully if they can have a bit of a decent break now, maybe they can reset. And I'm still more than confident that Gary O'Neill is absolutely the right man for the job. I think he's done an absolutely outstanding job. I just kind of feel now we've hit the 41 points. Was job done now. We feel a bit more comfortable. They probably know they're not gonna hit Europe. So you can just kind of see it fizzling out and just turn into a little bit of a damp squib where maybe we finish 11th or 12th. And yes, it'll be a successful season, but it'll be another season of what ifs, because we had potential to have a real strong end to the season. I just don't think we've got a squad to do it.
Yeah. I totally agree on the squad comments, because, well, you saw how threadbare it was on Saturday, but and we joke about this, but I love the fact that many times I've tried to be positive, we've written them off, and they've bounced back, and I've absolutely loved it, and I hope I'm right again. I hope my positivity takes us through, but it does look tough. Sorry, Tyler.
No, you are right. I was just looking as you were talking at the results, and I'm only scanning quickly, so I might be wrong. It looks like we've only lost back-to-back games once in the Premier League. And I know we haven't gone on a run of like losing 3, 4, 5 in a row, which can be common for a team of our stature and our positioning. I think Everton have gone 11 or 12 without a win, and Bournemouth went on a run without a win. So you are right, and you have to give credit for that. We have bounced back brilliantly every time we've had a bit of a negative. So I just wanted to call that out. It looks like we've only had back-to-back defeats once, so They've
I think
also
that was
got
early. That was the start of the season, wasn't it, as well?
Gary does get them going. Yeah, I think it was when we played Arsenal and someone else. But I have been looking quickly, so I might be wrong. But yeah, I'm taking the first 2 out, to be fair, of his reign, because that wasn't fair on Gary, was it? But we need them back, don't we? That's what we need.
Absolutely.
It's been a phenomenal effort when you look at the whole thing from start to finish. And yes, we're disappointed today, but that doesn't mean as soon as the game finished, me and Tyler were on the phone talking about Burnley away and what sandwiches we're going to have. So it doesn't mean that you've lost your appetite for the game. It's just a layer of disappointment based on what happened. But that doesn't take away from what's been an absolutely unbelievable effort by Gary O'Neill and the team. They've achieved way above anyone's expectation. What I don't want to see, and I've got too much love for my club to want to see it end on a whimper, because they deserve so much more out of the season. That's why it's more frustrating than anything else.
Absolutely. Richard Holmes, thank you for creating such a good debate and being part of the show. A couple of questions I think we've already answered, but I'll show them. Sean Facer says, unlike a lot of Wolves fans online, I feel like the desire was there from us on Saturday. I thought we were more disjointed and tired and can't get it more together. I think we'll roughly agree. I don't think people weren't trying. I just think Coventry wanted it more and they were more tactically astute. So yeah, Sean, I think we covered a bit of that earlier on, but I wanted to get it up. It was a good question. Also, Paul mentioned, could we have breached financial fair play for a striker if you only football deduction? I think Tyler mentioned that as well. And it turns out you can do that. So, yeah, and probably if they appeal, they might even get more points off. So we shall see. But thank you, Paul, for that. A couple more questions, 51 minutes. Greg Hickman's asked, what do you think now about our approach for the last 6 transfer windows regarding the number 9, bearing in mind that some teams have 3 or 4? I know Greg's talked about this in the past, but when you loan out 2 number 9s, but granted what Tyler says, they won't get any minutes, and then you have all your forward line injured, it's bad planning, but it's also bad luck. Any more take on that, guys?
But it's not the first time we've done it, though, is it? I mean, last season we had the Adama situation where we ended up leaving the window weaker than we entered it, and the situation with Kalajic and Silva, I get it. They weren't playing, and Silva's not going to make it at this level. I'm pretty convinced of that. But you can't relinquish, such a specialist position where Kalajic's come off the bench and won us 4 points. You can't relinquish that unless you've got a backup plan or someone else coming in. And you could say you can't legislate for the injuries we've had, but hamstrings aren't a new thing at Wolves, and we know that Hwang suffered with it in the past. We know that Cunha's had his fair share of injuries. We know that Neto's made out of glass. So to not leave yourself a backup, and your only backup is a young lad who we're drilling into the ground at the minute, and we don't know what kind of damage we're doing to Fraser. We don't know what career he's going to have, but we're not doing him any favours at the minute. So there has to be a little bit of someone putting their hands up saying, you know what, I've got that wrong. We should have brought someone in. We should have brought covering before we released them, or we should have kept Kalajic and said, you might not be happy. You signed a contract. You're here to the end of the season. Then we'll offload you at the end of the season, because he would have played against Coventry. He would have given us that aerial presence. He would have been able to hold the ball up. He would have been able to bring other players in. Instead, we had absolutely nothing up there, and that's probably the main reason we lost the game. So it's this time last year we had a brilliant transfer window in January. This year it's been a complete and total flop, and let's be completely honest, most of our January windows are.
Yeah, other than the one where Mario Lamina, Craig Dawson,
last season's was brilliant. But
other than that, Greg Hickman, regular contributor to the show. Last but not least on the questions, Graham J. I can answer this one. On other podcasts, some people have been posting in the comments are castigating to the players as bottle jobs. Agree or disagree? I don't think they bottled it. I think they were all thinking about Wembley, and it was concentration and organisation. I don't think they shit out on it. I just think that they got stuck in the headlights from a game they didn't deserve to be in, that should have been over. They've got 2 quick goals. The stadium's bouncing. I think the players lost their concentration, their organisation, and I think there was some tactically naivety from the manager and from the players. Would I class that as bottling? No. I think it's poor game management and a real... The Traore situation not coming on, switching it back, making it ugly, as Noki said earlier on. For me, it's tactical. I don't think it's anything about crumbling in terms of bottling it. I just think it's bad organisation, and I think we could have done better coaching and on the pitch there. Anything to add for that before we move to the Villa game, boys?
Yeah,
no. It's a multitude of things that we got wrong. You could
Being
you
200
could
with 3 minutes left for me is as close to bottling it as you're going to get.
Yeah,
but that's
I
just
mean,
my opinion.
you wouldn't be wrong if you had the opinion it was a bottle job because of the position we were in and what we were up against. But I think there was ways we could have avoided it if we'd have made the correct decisions, management wise and defensively. And when you talk about bottle jobs, I think your centre half's walking away from the striker and leaving him free. That's a bottle job for me. So
To going for a wonder is a bottle job. Things like that are. And it might not be the right terminology and the right phrase, but.
No, but they got it wrong. Whichever way you look at it, they got it wrong. It's not going to change the result, but they've been brilliant for us in the past. But this, for me, that there is elements of they were a little bit scared.
There've been some great questions. I couldn't get them all on. Thank you so far for everyone that's contributed. I put the tweet out the day before or the morning before the podcast to get as many as I could. There have been some absolute belters. It's a real big part of the show that we enjoy, and we hope you enjoy it as well. Coming to the end of episode 93 of the Wolves Report, Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. What way to bounce back from some FA Cup heartbreak than to go to Villa Park? Well, we'll find out, won't we, a week on Saturday. Wolverhampton Wanderers face Aston Villa away at the tea time kickoff on Saturday evening. I believe it's a Sky Sports game, but we'll be there. So I'm not sure where it is, but it's on TV somewhere.
5:30, yeah.
Half 5 kickoff, Sky Sports. It's an absolute monster. If my theory or delusion is correct, Wolves always seem to bounce back and will be really, really happy. However, this feels like a difficult task. On the other side of things, there's no John McGinn, who's an absolute pain to play against, and there's no Kamara. That's their engine room depleted. However, they have a lot more forwards than Wolverhampton Wanderers. However, Tyler, this is a local derby, and anything can happen.
Yeah, we won't go there with any fear or any reason to worry about them. They've had a good season, but they're not in peak form. I think they'll admit that at the moment. It's just what team we can put out, isn't it, ultimately, I think, and how we line up. I don't fear them at midfield battle. My one concern would be if we've made Ellis Sims look like peak Ronaldo, then Ollie Watkins will have a field day, won't he? But I think it'll be a fairly tight game. I'm not going in with too much confidence, but I think that's just on the back of Saturday being so raw, really. But obvious thing to say, but we need to be better defensively. We need to be better offensively. So you do the maths.
Tyler, sorry, Nocky.
I'm not very confident about this one.
I've got more. Just take back a second, Nocky. You know when we were 2-0 down and we stood next to each other, and you weren't feeling confident then, and then 15 minutes later you said, "Lester, there's some blood coming out of your ear, son." How did you feel then?
Was that when we had Jimenez and Adama running at them, and we had strikers on the pitch? That game.
Yeah, that's true.
I just feel
Kuna will be back, won't he? He's got to be.
Yeah, but how fit's he going to be? I mean, it is a bit of a Wolves tradition that we throw him in and he does his hamstring again. That's kind of how we operate. If you offer me a draw now, I'd absolutely take your hand off, but I feel like it's been a long time coming, the Villa beating us, and I've got more and more annoyed as the podcast has gone on, so I kind of... It's on my birthday as well, so it's all set up for us to get a bit of a whooping, I think. And I just think the way they play at home,
all set up for a whooping.
the energy, the movement, the way that Ollie Watkins breaks the lines and the diagonal runs he makes such intelligent runs, and we couldn't pick up runs of a 24 stone Ellis Sims, so we've got absolutely no chance of picking up Ollie Watkins is one of the best.
Just a disclaimer that the Wolves report doesn't believe Ellis Sims is 24 stone. Whoever he's going to Wembley after bagging 2 against Wolves.
Yeah, I just think we're going to get a bit of a hide in this one. I just got a feeling. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, usually whenever I predict Wolves to win, we get slapped, and when I predict us to get lose, we win. So hopefully that'll come around. But it just feels like a game where we're going to have our pants pulled down.
Tyler, going to the shape of the team, I think we saw changes happen that should have happened at half-time. For me, this is a game where Aït-Nouri, I think, has to go forward. I think we have to trust Hugo Bueno to come in at left wing-back. I quite like the look of Aït-Nouri going to a right forward. And I know that sounds desperate, but I can't watch another forward line with no pace at all.
I think I'll still be stepped. If Bellegarde, I know what I've said about Bellegarde, but if him and Kuna and Sarabia are fit, that's still my front three. And Aït-Nouri is still my left wing-back. Because I still think he's outstanding there. And I think, like Knocker said earlier, he's miles ahead of Bueno. So I think where Aït-Nouri might strengthen you potentially in that position, I think you're weakening another one to get him in the side. And they're rapid down the flanks. They're good. And if Bueno's not ready for it, he could be ripped a new one, for want of a better phrase. So if Bellegarde is doing better than they thought and Cunha is fit enough to play, that's my front three with E93 still at wing back.
Nocky?
I think whatever we do, we've got to get Lamina and Gomez in the engine room. They've got to be
absolutely. That's the pair. That's fair. Just a quick poll as well for you both. I know we've talked and disagreed about this, but I think we've seen, without him being there, we learnt the value of having Craig Dawson in the side for games like that. Is this a game now when you've conceded 3 to Coventry and been bullied, where you bring in a centre-back that doesn't get bullied?
Yeah. It's a different kind of game, though, isn't it? I don't anticipate them getting bullied quite as much. I think the pace element's going to be more important because of the runs Watkins makes, and Bueno potentially got a little bit more pace than Dawson, but Dawson's got the experience. I'm comfortable whoever comes in, to be honest, but it has to be a 3 at the back.
But Dawson will make it horrible for him. That's what we didn't do to City. He won't be nice to play against, whereas we were nice to play against. And he comes straight back in for me just to get tight to Watkins and boot him a little bit, if I'm honest.
I think he was close with his groin. I think he'll be okay from what I understand for the Villa game, as long as he doesn't have any reactions to that. He'll be fit. Cunha's back on the grass training with the first team, so you'd imagine he's been protected. I see Cunha as being a sub. I don't see him starting. I know we argue about this, Tyler, but we debate. We don't argue about it. If you're fit enough, you start. We said this about Neto. I don't see him coming straight back in. I think Cunha's more of a 60-minute player, and if Wolves are in the game, that's a great sub.
And I don't know, you'd ideally like him to have some football before Villa, wouldn't you? Whether it's a 23s or a 21s game, you'd probably like him to have some football. And you might be right if that opportunity doesn't present itself. But 2 weeks is a long time in football, isn't it? So hopefully he won't be far away.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to pick the team, but I think we're on the same page with Dawson coming back in. I think we need to go, and no disrespect to Tommy Doyle, I think this is a game for Mario Lamina and Joe Gomez. If Villa have a lot of talent now, Yuri Tielemans and Douglas Luiz are 2 very technically gifted footballers. What they don't have, though, on Wolves is the legs. And if we can press and make it horrible for them, yes, they have the ability and more technical ability, but there's not a lot of legs in there. And that's where I hope if Cunha or Bellegarde was fit to come in and run at those 2, that will be an 8 ball there. Nocky?
Tyler's not going to like this, but I might almost be tempted to put Totti as a left wing back and push E93 up, and then have E93, Bellegarde kind of as your attacking options, because I think Totti's got a bit of pace, and I expect Villa to hit us down the flanks. So I could see that.
Who would you play left centre back then?
Well, I'll play. You could play Dawson. Bring Dawson in if he's fit. So Dawson, Kilman, Bueno, and then Totti as your left wing back, and he can hold a little bit deeper, and then you can push Semedo up the other side. And then you can kind of recover back into a 4 if Semedo gets caught up the pitch. That's kind of where I'd be. And then with E93 up front, because he looks like our most dangerous player on the pitch, E93. And I just think he is absolutely our best left wing back, but he's the one who's most likely to make something happen up front at the minute. I think that's realistic. And even if Bellegarde's fit, he's not going to play 90. If Cunha's fit, he's not going to play 90. Whereas I think E93 could do a little bit of work in that position. And additionally, we've got the strength of the pace from the wide positions. You've got Gomez and Lamina who can hold that area and hopefully dominate the midfield, and just see if you can play off him up front and get a little bit more movement in there. That's maybe what I'd be tempted to do, and just try and keep your back line solid.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because they play such a high line, Villa do, and it's a shame.
Massive high line, yeah.
Neto and Hwang, they're not available, because you'd be going there almost fancying it then if that was the case. But that's where they leave the whole half free for you to play in, so that's where we can potentially get at them.
Well, I think with the pace that they have, Nocky, I'm tempted to leave Totti at left centre back because of a good job he did on Diaby. Whether that's Bailey playing there this time, but he did well against Molineux, and obviously he scored against them a couple of years ago as well. I'd bring Bueno into that left side and get that. He's got decent pace as well, and I'd get E93, but I'd have E93 as the right forward. Now, it's crazy to say that because that's how desperate we are for numbers. I don't see Cunha starting. I don't see Bellegarde starting. But if you add E93 up there, at least you've got an out ball, because he is an intelligent guy and he does find the space. He finds himself in those positions because he he has a natural ability to find it. So
yeah, I'm comfortable Totti Bueno on that left-hand side, but I do think it's important that we push Ait-Nouri into that attacking position because he looks like the one who can make it happen. So that's got to be our main attacking option. I just feel like that's where we could maybe get a little bit of joy. And as Chris said, they hold a very high line. Ait-Nouri has got a bit of pace, so maybe we can catch him out in that area. But if you're playing him as a wing back, for me, you're just losing a little bit of something that we could have up front because we know that the ball just didn't stick against Cov, and it's absolutely not going to stick against Villa if we're going to play with the same front three. It's not going to work.
Absolutely. Moving to the end of the show, a bit of debate on the team, answered lots of your questions, talked about Cov and financial fair play as well. Thank you for joining us this latest episode of the Wolves Report. It is that time of show I've not been looking forward to because I cannot see this going well at all. It is time for predictions, and as it is your 250th birthday at Villa Park, Nocky, tell me the score between Aston Villa and Wolverhampton.
I think I'll go
for your own birthday.
I'll go for a hopeful 3-0 to Villa.
I thought you were going to say Wolves then.
Nah, just can't see it.
Tyler.
I'm trying to be positive and I'll say 1-1, but yeah, I'm with Knocker. I think we'd have to be at full strength to go there and beat them. So, and we're not. And
last but not least, the man that predicted Wolves to beat Coventry 3-0, so I'm absolutely nowhere near anything at all. But as you've gone for a draw and a loss, I'll have to go for a Wolves win. It's just what I do. Wolves and my favourite, Matheus Cunha. 1-0 to Wolverhampton Wanderers. This has been episode 93 of the Wolves Report. Thank you so much to Chris Tyler and Mark Knock. I've been your host, Ryan Lester.
So bad we are, he's picked an injured player.
That's all we've got. You've ruined my flow at the end of the show, Knock. It's not your birthday yet. Thanks for watching. See you in 2 weeks of the Wolves.